Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Politics of Jesus podcast. I'm your co-host, Reverend LaKesha Womack, joined with my co-host, Dr. Obery Hendricks, and our fantastic guest this evening, the Reverend Dr. Michael Eric Dyson.
Yes, sir. My man.
Great to be here with you. Great to be here with y'all.
Yes,
Mama,
sir.
I made it. I'm on the Politics of Jesus podcast.
Yes.
I'm big time now. Good God Almighty.
Well, preachers will say anything, right?
Oh man.
Good to have you, brother. It's so good to see you, man. God, I haven't seen you in person. It's been months, but it's good to.
It's been a while, man. Since I
to you.
visited you in jail, you were doing good back there.
I appreciate you paying my bail too, man. You know.
I mean, Doc, that $5, I need it back.
Yeah, but so good to have you. This is my brother, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. No, most folk are familiar with him for all of his television and public media appearances. I guess it's about 24 books now, right, Doc?
Yeah, a little bit more than that. Yeah, you're right.
Wow.
About that space. Yeah.
You have been a presence in our lives in the media for a couple of decades now, and it's made a difference. You've been fighting the fight and saying the hard things and taking blows for it, and that's why we love you and support you, brother. And I personally appreciate you very much, man, because as you might recall, you talked me into applying to Princeton University for grad school. I wasn't going to do it.
I can still see you walking down. I was at Pine Hall, and you walking down that path. I can still see it, bro. I can still see it.
I appreciate it. But I remember, and then we'll move on, but I remember it must have been 1988. You invited you to preach when I was in Princeton Seminary, to preach in the chapel. And you preached this sermon for Jonathan's sake. I'll never forget. Yeah. And there were folk afterward who had been balking about, doing this study, saying, I'm tired of all this theology. Man, after you preached that sermon, I'm serious. Folks said, I'm going to study.
You're back into it.
Man.
Really inspiring. So, brother, so good to have you.
It's great to be here. And I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah. And we, this is a very important moment. And it's a very fraught moment and a dangerous moment in letters in America now. We know you as a very uncompromising political commentator. And activist. You've been at it for some time. Just before we begin, brother, let me ask you, how much of your politics is inspired by your faith? I mean, you have a political commentator, but you're a man of faith too, a Baptist minister and preacher. You've been a pastor in the past. How much of your politics is inspired by your faith? And were there any particular events or experiences that influenced the growth of your anti-fascist consciousness?
No, it's a great question. You and I are big jokesters. So I started the joke right now, but I don't know if your audience will receive it. I was going to say,
they can handle it.
I came out 5 years ago as atheist. You didn't hear? Okay.
No, man, don't be carried away, man. Don't even say it. But no, man, look, it plays a central role. Mm-hmm. It's the most significant factor and force in my life. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. And I grew up in the Black Baptist Church. And I listened to my late great pastor, the Reverend Dr. Frederick George Sampson, II. And he twice named by Ebony Magazine as one of the 15 greatest Black preachers, by which I take it 15 greatest American preachers. Yeah. And a gracious gentleman, Lord have mercy.
Just a beautiful man. So I was reared under his tutelage, and I would listen to him in the mornings. And then on many an afternoon, I would listen to Charles Gilchrist Adams, Dr. Adams.
The Harvard Hooper.
The Harvard Hooper at Hartford Memorial then Baptist Church. I was at Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church. And, my pastor, Dr. Sampson, He would talk about visiting the young boy that was known as mentally ill, visiting in the Gadarenes, right, in the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Sampson would go, "It's all right to visit the graveyard. You ain't got no business making it your address." And then I'd go listen to Charles Gilchrist Adams, "In the Wilderness." And then he would talk about preaching about Noah, drunk on the eve of reconstruction. and he would say, "I know you can take success." He said, "No." He said, "I know you can take failure, but can you take success?" Right? And he would preach that thing. And then at night, so Dr. Sampson in the morning, Dr. Adams in the midday, and at night, every Sunday night, they played the Reverend Dr. Clarence LaVaughn Franklin.
Oh boy.
T.L. Franklin.
Oh Lord.
On the radio, Aretha's daddy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have me. So he the storm, you know. Dr. Franklin, man, and was a scholar.
Yeah.
A lot of people just hear that hooping, like,
yeah.
"Oh Lord." But he would say something first. "There was a boy, and according to Josephus," right? He would break that thing down, man. And I'll be go look at who is Josephus. Is that an alternate pronunciation of Joseph? Let me go. So I had that great rhetorical homiletical tradition that was the backdrop and the bulwark of my own developing faith. And accepted my call at 19, got licensed to preach at 21, just as I was going to college. I was late going to college. When people say, "Wait a minute, 21, you mean you were graduating?" No, I had a delayed process because I got gone to a big time private school, got kicked out of there, had to repeat the 11th grade, came back, got a GED at Northwestern High School, night school, and then was an emergency janitor for a while and did some work in the factory, all that. And then, had a child, got married, got unmarried. And then I said at 21, I need to support this child. I need to be able to support my son. And I got to go back to college to really get myself together. So I went at 21, got licensed, and then ordained as a minister. So faith is critical, but faith as a force of critical engagement, not as mere emotional reflex, but as supplying the principles and the basis of thinking strategically and broadly about the matter of faith and how we can apply the matter of faith to our larger political, social, and economic worlds. So faith is central to the principles I hold dear, to the ideals that I articulate, to the understanding of the gospel, both the Hebrew gospel, the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, and to whatever other religious texts we adhere to appreciate the deep and profound understanding of who we are as human beings. So faith has been quite central to who I am.
Well, that's if I might say quickly, Keisha, you did raise a point that's worthy for consideration. I think these ministers, these preachers, these scholar pastors that you mentioned were scholar pastors, and they studied. They were studying,
right?
And they had something to say, and it wasn't just about blustering and entertaining folk. It's an important model that for us to reclaim. They use their studies to study.
Right.
That's so very.
Are you throwing shade, Dr. Hendricks?
I'm throwing a little shade. Yeah. I feel look, I'm ordained to AME Church. I love the church and I respect my fellow ministers, but let's face it, some of them are not fulfilling their responsibility to tend the sheep. And Jesus said the truth shall set you free. We need to say those things. I'm not hating on anybody, but hopefully
just making a point. But I think it's a very valid point because, based on our conversation tonight about, the Black tradition of resisting fascism, where is that Black preacher voice as we're taking these steps toward fascism? Like, who's really speaking against that? But I think before we even get there, like, Dr. Dyson, can you just define fascism for us? Because I think that there are so many misconceptions about fascism, and people think that it's this big thing, when really, as the article that you recently wrote, like, there are incremental steps toward a change in the way our society functions. So can you just elaborate a little bit on that for us?
Yes, ma'am. Well, fascism in its origins out of Italy under Benito Mussolini, about in 1914, 1915, when he began to articulate this idea of how the state, in an authoritarian fashion, in a fashion that suppressed independent political thought, that suppressed the ability of normal citizens to exercise political agency, that the state would take the place of both the moral and the political sensibilities of individual citizens, and dictate to the state, to the citizenry, what policies would hold, how things would occur, and most especially that they wouldn't be able to vote for the person who headed their own government. That person, got into office, succeeded in getting into office, and that person would perpetuate a legacy of inequity and of political dominance, without reference to the need for people to vote and to have the capacity of, agency being exercised. So fascism is, developed in Italy in 1914, 1950, takes hold really in 1917 after the First World War, that, was over, and then fascism really takes root. And Benito Mussolini is most especially connected with that because he coins the term, and he, is the first one to really engage in serious, ultra nationalist, far right politics, right? So it's not, it's an authoritarian government. It's extraordinary nationalism. It's the suppression of political agency among the citizenry, and individual rights are certainly, put on the side and on the back burner, and the national community, in terms of nationalism, rises to the fore. And then you got all kind of offshoots of that with authoritarian government, with dictatorial government, with Nazi, what's called Nazi socialism, which is a form of authoritarian government that was part also of an offshoot of fascism. So fascism in that sense is the use of violence and propaganda to maintain a nationalist perspective and a nationalist organization of power, political power, suppression of individual rights and vote, and the articulation of a national sensibility premised upon and based on and driven by the particular authoritarian autocratic figure who's in office.
Yeah. And there's that, and they employ that demonization. They construct, an enemy to
That's
coalesce. Right. They construct an enemy to coalesce around demonization. And you're right, the authoritarianism is a thing, but it's also important to note that it's anti-democratic, right, at its core.
Absolutely.
It's anti-democratic.
We ain't talking about Democrat versus Republican, y'all. We talking about liberal democracy, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But do you think, like, our lack of participation in the process makes us complicit in some ways in the march toward fascism? Because when people just kind of throw their hands up and say, oh, my vote doesn't matter, then it's almost as if we are allowing this to happen.
Well, there's no question that there is complicity in a democracy like ours, in a liberal democracy, as Dr. Hendricks just spoke about. Anti-democratic means liberal democracy, the expression of rights that we find inalienable, the documents we find central, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, some would say the Federalist Papers, and so on, that in liberal democracy, which is an appreciation for the rights of humankind and human beings able to exercise legitimate agency toward the realization of noble goals, noble aspirations, freedom, justice, equality, and the like. Well, yeah, in a place in a space like ours, when we throw our hands up, ain't no difference. You vote for that person, it's the same as that one over there. The one on the left is the same as the one on the right. We got two parties, they're all jacked up, all of which may be true. Right. But you do become complicit in a certain kind of politics of surrender that doesn't have you exercising your legitimate agency as a voter. Now, it could be under assault. We see what's going on now. There are all kinds of shenanigans and machinations to try to, steal the vote from us, to try to deny our legitimate exercise of vote. You got a president talking about getting rid of mail-in votes and all this kind of madness, which ironically enough helps him out more than he even realizes. So
right.
The
you
truth
mean
is,
mail-in votes help him more than he realizes?
Mail-in votes definitely help him more than he's given them credit for. So the point is that, yes, while we still have the ability to raise our voices, to make our judgments felt at the voting booth, at the polls, then yes, we should be responsible for participating as citizens. Now, part of what fascism does is convince you that you ain't need to do that no more. Let us do the work for you. Just automatically understand that we're in power, and there have been some shady, beliefs articulated at the top of the political totem pole here in America. But at the same time, it makes you believe that you don't have anything to vote for anyhow. Remember Dr. King in 1963? He said the Negro in the South can't vote, and the Negro in the North believes he has nothing for which to vote.
Yeah.
Right.
So they convincing you, they getting inside what they used to call back in the 60s and 70s, and Dr. Hendricks noticed about tricknosis.
Yeah. Technology. Here was Elijah Muhammad.
Right. They trying to convince you that you don't even need to vote. Man, it ain't no difference. Hey, why y'all going to vote black people? The Republicans and the Democrats are all the same. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, they all the same. Now that foolishness was absorbed by some and believed by some, or even before. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump ain't no difference.
Oh, they were saying that. Yeah.
My Lord, my God, how horrible a belief that was. But if you buy that, because you do have legitimate problems with both parties, ain't none of them perfect. Jesus ain't running. It's human beings who are running, right? And running the parties. Yeah. And so we have to speak up and stand up, however, because if there's any possibility of undermining this junta, this fascist impulse, we have to stand up and say no more. We got the Supreme Court that is complicit.
Yes.
We got the U.S. Senate, which is complicit. We got the House of Representatives, which is complicit. We have local legislatures, and 38 of the 50 are primarily Republican. They're redrawing maps. They're gerrymandering after the governor, the gerrymander up in I think it was in Connecticut. It was a portmanteau, which is a fancy word for a combination of two words: Governor Jerry and looking like a salamander, which was, this fictional animal, because the way they drew the map back then, in Massachusetts in the 1800s, looked like the mythical salamander. Right. So they were saying Jerry, the governor's name, salamander. Jerry redrew the map like a salamander. It's gerrymander. And ever since then, we've been drawing weird districts, supposedly after the census, every 10 years. But what these darn Republicans done, they have gone out here and commandeered the political process for their own narrow narcissistic preoccupations and the will of the dictatorial, autocratic, authoritarian, neo-fascist, crypto-fascist, however you want to say it, president who's dictating to the governor of Texas that I need 5 more votes.
Yes.
In the House of Representatives in order to do what I got to do. And darn it, if they didn't respond in fashion. So we're seeing the outlines of fascism operating, it ain't looking like Benito Mussolini, right? But that's why Professor Toscano talked about you can either do it by analogy by saying, "Oh, this doesn't look like what was going on there with Mussolini. Mussolini made the trains run on time." Well, that's just like saying this dude is trying to give you a rebate check during COVID or something. It's the same thing, right? These little crumbs that you get on the table in the face of extraordinary forms of vitriol, violence, but especially fascist impulse. So we got that, or you can have a kind of genealogy, as Toni Morrison has done.
Can we get into that?
And so on, where you talk about, look at the forces here. And I'll say this is what I didn't say in my article. I wrote an article, y'all can go read it. But here's the thing. Racism is a dry run for fascism.
Exactly.
Yes.
You want to know what's going on with fascism as Black people, because we've been treated to a variety of fascism through white supremacist belief, through neo-nationalism, through white supremacist nationalism, through white Christian nationalism. So we have been subject to this from the beginning of our sojourn here in America. And everything you're worried about in fascism, the suppression of the vote, the inability to exercise your own legitimate authority, the inability to stand as equal citizens in a polity, in a democracy, all that stuff you're worried about in terms of fascism, we've dealt with as Black people in this nation. So they done tried out fascism on us. We are the canary in the coal mine of political ideology. And so therefore, when people are complaining, it ain't new to us. Right. You had a white water fountain and a Black water fountain. You had a Black school and a white school. You had radical inequality. You didn't even let us vote until 1965 en masse. So when you look at what fascism is, we've been dealing with that for a long time.
Well, you're right, brother. And you raised some interesting points. One thing I want to point out, talk about disempower. Trump actually said we won't have to vote again. Remember, he said
yes.
He was saying too much, wasn't he? He was saying too much.
He says the quiet part out loud all the time, and people don't believe it.
But that brings it up. You mentioned this article. You published this brilliant article.
Thank you, sir.
August 31st edition of Los Angeles Times, and someone brought to my attention at a wedding. I think it was Wade Henderson's wife brought to my attention. I read it on my phone, and it got me so excited because it's so brilliant. And you, in this article, you invoked Toni Morrison's genealogy of Black anti-fascism. What you were saying is a different tradition than European anti-fascism,
right,
French resistance, Italian resistance. And so what was it about her analysis that moved you so much to write about it and to use it in your own analysis?
Well, I just tell people to refer to the essay you wrote in the Aftermath of Mine. You just broke it all the way down. But look, Toni Morrison was naming, as the young people say, all the things. She was getting at the issues. You demonize somebody. You create an enemy. You throw, ad hominems at them. You build fences. She said palisade. So you patch up and create ends where you contain people's beliefs, ideas, and aspirations. You create a demonization and stigmatization of the other. You otherize them, as we would say. And then you build prisons and encampments to throw them into, like we're doing with ICE, with the Alcatraz, whatever, and the like. So Toni Morrison in 1995, in a convocation speech at Howard University, was breaking it down as she was always that brilliant. She is. Toni Morrison, I'm trying to point back to her. That's her 70th birthday party at the New York Public Library, where the lies are buried. We had to go dig them up.
Man, we were blessed to have her as our friend, brother.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, she was, I heard Toni Morrison when she first came to Princeton, and she was talking about beginnings. And she said, beginnings must do so much more than start. I was like, dang, man, she breaking it down, bro. Toni Morrison was a straight genius. So she understood that racial tyranny, right? And she called racism the succubus twin of fascism.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So she understood what what the incredible intensity of, white supremacy could do. And she understood how fascism was operating in American culture, in African American culture. And she also understood what it meant for Black people to be the first victims of an incredible, intense, extended preoccupation with the denial of our legitimacy and our standing as citizens in American society and our ability to exist in a culture that saw us as less than human. And so the fascist impulse of white supremacy, she was able to name straight away and did a brilliant job doing it.
Yeah, you mentioned in your article steps that she mentions in the fascism, which she also outlines in longer form in her books, The Source of Self-Regard. Right. But she said you listed inventing an enemy to divert attention from more serious matters, tossing ad hominem insults their way, getting media to reinforce the enemy's degraded status, attacking those sympathetic to the enemy, pathologizing and criminalizing the enemy, and blanketing the entire process in silence. Then you went on to say that we are seeing those exact things happening today. So this administration encourages right-wing media to tear down individual and institutional reputations and to spread lies, assaults anyone who dares to defend those on the lengthy enemies list, revives racist and sexist mythology to erode social and gender process, and erects facilities to detain immigrants. A brilliant distillation, I think, of what she wrote and analogizing it to our current situation. So how close do you think the analogy is, in the steps to fascism that she mentions? How close do you think our plight today is fulfilling what she wrote about in 1995?
I mean, we here. I mean, we real close, man. This ain't no like, man, I wonder when that's gonna come down. It's like right around, it ain't way down the street. We living on the same boat. And if we don't, if we don't do everything we can do in order to sustain our democracy by refusing to bend our knee, to bow at the altar of white supremacy, to believe that our vote doesn't matter, not to show up at the polls. Now, we know that this, crypto-fascist government wants us not to vote. And it's trying to do everything to keep us. So we got to fight that on one hand, but we got to fight apathy on the other.
Yeah.
We got to fight the belief that what we're doing is not important and not significant. And we got to believe in our own hearts that this vote makes a difference. Now, I know people, even on the left, why are you voting? Voting is a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. Stop that. Because all we're doing is playing into the hands of our, quote, opponents and those who see us as less than human or less than American. What did Martin Luther King Jr. say racism was? It looks at us as, he said, it is both ungodly and un-American. I mean, that's it in a capsule. And so the truth is that we have to fight against that apathy that believes it can't happen here, it won't happen to us. That ain't how it's going on here. Yeah, but we still got this ability and that ability. Well, if you're not careful, and if you don't fight for the ability to vote, and if you don't fight for the ability to stand up, we're going to turn around and see a lot of stuff we never thought would happen. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. I don't care how eagerly we fought against Donald Trump. Be real honest right now. Ain't nobody thought it was going to be this bad. No. Ain't nobody. No. And stop lying, because I read most of the prognostications, and they were bad now.
Right.
Ain't nobody thought it was going to be like this.
Well, I did. I just didn't think it would happen this quickly.
Well, but I'm saying ain't nobody. See, when people say that, I would say, show me the piece of paper where you wrote that this was going to happen. And if you ain't done it, don't tell me what you was thinking. You was thinking about Santa Claus and Jesus, okay? I ain't mad, but I'm saying I was just going to call you when you call me. Yeah, all right. Okay. My point is, where did you write it? Where did you? I'm not talking about you.
I wrote it on Facebook.
Where did you write? Where's the blog? Where's the Instagram post where you said this man will end up doing things that are so fundamentally destructive? He will issue executive orders against DEI. Now we know he was going to be problematic and assaulted, but we didn't know. Tell me you knew he was going to force 5 college presidents out of their purchase. You're lying if you said you knew. You did not know that. Who knew that this man would use anti-Semitism as the basis of trying to be autocratic, demagogic, and the refusal to acknowledge our humanity? So stop lying. Ain't none of us anticipated that this man would come on college campuses where the great Reverend Dr. Obery Hendricks brilliantly teaches, and Dr. Farrah Jasmine Griffin teaches, and trying to tell you what you can teach. And DEI is out the door, and Black studies have to be marginalized. Who thought that he would be that aggressive, that vindictive, and that vengeful,
and that evil?
Stop lying. We knew it was going to be bad. We knew 2025 was horrible.
But remember, it's evil.
The exact, article, essay, sermon that was written. Not that it was going to be bad. We know it's going to be bad. Not that he was going to be racist. We knew that. Not that he would even have fascist impulses. But ain't nobody understood that it was going to be this bad. So bad that even traditional Republicans are finding what he's doing repugnant. We know the never Trumpers are there, but even Republicans who were like, yo, I ain't know he was going to go that far, right? That's what we've got to deal with here. So we've got to use all of our power. We got to use your podcasts and your discourse around the table at your kitchen. We got to stand up in schools and universities. Thank God. I mean, things are so bad. I might be giving money to Harvard. What in the heck? What in the hell? Harvard don't need no money. Well, here's the point. $50 billion they have as their what do you call endowment. But Harvard stood up for a while and said no. How about our great Princeton? Our President Eisgruber, who said, look, we are not going to bend the knee to Trump. And so we need more institutions of higher education doing the same thing. We need, like that president of George Mason University, that Dr. Washington said, no, I ain't going to apologize for doing DEI. In fact, I'm going to do more of it. So the point is, this is the arena in which we are tested. And I'll tell you something else that's interesting to me, too. White liberals, as Dr. King indicated, have been so profoundly discouraging. Why do I say that? We knew the right wing was going to be against DEI, but where's this defense of DEI by white liberals? Many white liberals weren't wholeheartedly invested in it in the first place. So when the authoritarian assault, the anti-democratic assault upon DEI came, they have no holler for us. They have no defense of us. They don't have a vigorous deployment of resources and funds to stand up. In fact, they go, yeah, it was messed up anyway. And there were some things about it well, so is your democracy imperfect. Thomas Jefferson owned human beings while he wrote the Declaration of Independence. George Washington, while taking the teeth of an enslaved human being. So let's not pretend y'all was perfect, because y'all weren't, but you still supported them. So why not support African-American, Latino, transgender, feminist, impulses in this culture? Because so many white liberals themselves were so weak-kneed in their defense of who we are as a people, and therefore it has gone by the wayside, and it's been very distressing and very discouraging to see the lack of spine of many of our white liberal brothers and sisters.
And I'm going to give it to LaKesha, but I just want to quote one more thing for you. You wrote more.
I can't hear.
Can't hear me? Am I?
I got you.
Can y'all? I can't hear y'all.
You can't.
We can hear you.
You can't hear me.
See the neo-fascists trying to undercut us. I can't.
That's right. That's
just
right.
I can't hear.
You still can't hear what happened.
Lord have mercy.
Isn't that?
What happened?
Yeah, let's work on that, Doc.
Lordy.
You go ahead and Work on that.
Well, I will say to our audience, this conversation is getting so good. So make sure that you all are liking. We have lots of comments coming in, and share with your.
I'm gonna just hang up and call y'all right back. Maybe
Okay.
I'll do that.
Sounds good.
You know, go ahead, LaKesha.
No, you go ahead, Dr. Hendricks.
No, I'm just saying that. I mean, Dr. Dyson is what's so amazing. What's so heartening is that he brings the kind of courage and passion that we need in this struggle. And you know, it sounds like anger. There's nothing wrong with righteous indignation. Jesus was angry, and especially in the Gospel of Mark, he was angry a number of times. But this is so very important, and I want to make it clear that I have some pointed comments myself, particularly about my colleagues in the ministry. But it's not hateration. I'm not hating on anybody. I'm trying
it's a call to action, right? Like this is the opportunity to step up, because I always say, people wonder, who they would have been during the civil rights era. And I always hear people think that they would be the hero, and they say, well, this is your chance to prove who you would have been during the civil rights era based on what you're doing now. Because if you're not doing it now, then how can you believe you would have done it then?
Exactly. What I was.
Am I back on?
Yes, you're back on.
Okay, I just got on my iPhone. I'm sorry about this.
It's okay.
That's cool. But I wanted to finish my last statement. Yeah. And I want to make it clear about my statements from time to time. I am trying to point out to my colleagues my own opinion from my reading the gospel, my colleagues in the ministry, of what our responsibility is in this moment. We are supposed to struggle for the good of our people, love our neighbors as ourselves, which doesn't mean we can sit around and not try to protect our folk from the forces that are assailing them. So when you hear me, and I'm going to do it, I'll be doing it all through this podcast. When you hear me talk about ministerial lack of responsibility, the ministry not taking care of the sheep, I'm trying to issue a call to action. And Dr. Dyson brings the kind of passion that we really need in this moment. Dr. Dyson, let me read this quote, and I want my co-host, LaKesha, to move in, because she's got some brilliant thoughts always. You wrote, Dr. Morrison argues that no one party corners the market on solutions to fascism because each is guilty of contributing to its rise. Republicans have surely courted white supremacists, but she said Democrats are not flawless egalitarians, nor are liberals free of agendas for domination. That's building on your last comment.
Yes, sir. There's no question that what Toni Morrison saw is we ain't gonna get rid of fascism when we have an election. Oh, now it's all back together. Because the rot at the bottom is not simply a Republican rot.
Yes.
It's a Democratic capitulation as well,
yes.
Right? Why is it, for instance, now I know this is a little bit controversial, but let's just go here. Why is it, for instance, that in New York City, where a Democratic socialist did it the old-fashioned way, he knocked on doors, he talked to people, he made them believe that his project was a project of liberation and emancipation for the masses. Zoran Mamdani, whose daddy, Mahmoud Mamdani, a great scholar at Columbia, whose mama, Mira Nair, is a great director. So look, the boy comes from, I'm calling the boy lovingly, he's a great man. The man comes from stock, pedigree. You can't, your daddy at Columbia, your mama, a big time, maybe is she even Oscar nominated director? What more you got to do as a person of color or somebody outside? I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, no, she did Mississippi Masala
with Denzel. With Denzel.
I mean, come on. But also his father was arrested for marching in the civil rights movement in Mississippi.
Come on, Doc. I mean,
about a man who's raised with the liberating
and writing about colonialism and the whole and the mama made monsoon wedding. I mean, come on, man. What they got to do? So here's the point. The point is that Mamdani wanted fair and square, but we don't have the wherewithal to stand up and support him Hakeem Jeffries is my brother. I love him. Where you at, sir? Chuck Schumer,
Right.
where you at?
Yeah.
So you would rather see the former governor himself in trouble, but we'll deal with that another day. Eric Adams, present mayor, in trouble, and deal with that another day. So you would rather deny the legitimate efforts of a young man, 33 years old, for you Christians. Let's not crucify him. Let's stand with him. But 33 years old, articulate, handsome, understand. He is very comfortable with black people, right? Raised in Uganda, was a rapper of sorts on some of his mama's movies and some other things he did. The boy got credentials. But
Right.
here we are refusing as Democrats to embrace the progressive element of our own particular party. And so we talk about reaching across the aisle. So we don't mind reaching across the aisle to Republicans, but we can't reach across the chasm between us and AOC or Mamdani or Jasmine
Yeah.
Crockett. So we have to figure out a way ourselves to be able to engage in serious and sustained self-critique and self-examination. Now, what Toni Morrison was saying is that historically we know Democrats done some messed up stuff, and our Republican brothers and sisters never tire saying this. It was the Democrats who were messed up.
They love this.
Dude, that was like what, 80, 90? How many years ago was that's darn near a century ago?
Right.
And after FDR in 1945, well, before then, when he's got the New Deal coming, black people are making that switch over. So let's not pretend that we don't understand that, what used to be ain't no more. People used to ride Teslas because they were electric vehicles that were on the cutting edge of the environment. Now they are the very status symbol of another bigoted fascist. So here's my point. I'm not saying the car itself, I'm talking about the person who's producing them. So my point simply is, and then inevitably the complicity in that system by buying that car after the fact. So my point simply is this, is that we're not trying to say that Democrats are flawless, as Professor Morrison said. We're not trying to suggest that Democrats don't have any problems, that we ain't got racists, and we ain't got fundamentalists, that we ain't got bigots. Yes, we do. And we have some impulses toward fascism ourselves. Yes, we have to clean that up. But the bottom line is we have to be willing to take the steps that are necessary to ensure that our government is not at the mercy of vicious impulses that cannot be checked by those who are willing to not only examine their own practices and principles, but are willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the nation and to craft a government that is for everybody. So in that sense, ain't nobody got a copyright on it, but I'll tell you what, the Democrats have been doing a better job recently than the darn Republicans, and we have to figure out ways to continue to expand the horizon of our political possibility by embracing those productive, prophetic, and I think empathetic goals to see each other as human beings, to not deny each other the right to exist freely, and not to replicate some of the demagoguery ourselves. Now, let me look at the black church. I know Obery Hendricks does it because I done seen him do it with my own eyes. And he done seen me do it with his own eyes. We have challenged black para-church organizations, black ecclesiastical orders, black churches. We used to have to say, how you gonna be talking about liberation and you homophobic? How you gonna be transphobic? And I tell black people, you halfway there. Because when you ask black people who did it, they did. When you ask them who they was hanging out, mama and them, you got the pronouns. Just catch up with the theology. Come on, man. And you believe in transubstantiation. When when you do communion, when the cracker turns into wine, well, the cracker turns into Jesus's body. And I wish we could understand that transubstantiation, the transformation of a particular symbolic gesture, a particular piece of cracker as a symbol of God's broken body. I mean, you gonna do all that? And you gonna deny trans people or gay people or lesbian people who they are? I ain't never been to a black church that turns down gay tithes. And the point is, they ain't real about it, right? They ain't kicking nobody out the choir because a lot of them who are up there, I ain't saying all the choirs gay, but a lot of them are.
right? And sometimes you ain't gonna get no word on Sunday morning if you kick all the gay people out, because you got gay people in your pulpit preaching some fiery sermons. So feminism, when we talk about, we still got some churches, women can't speak, women can't stand up on the pulpit, women can't even articulate. The Bible said, Jesus said, if you don't cry out, the rocks
The
will
rocks
cry out.
will.
So God can ordain an inanimate object, but not a woman. I mean, I thought you said nothing is impossible for God. And if nothing is impossible for God, how are you limiting God? We are trying to reduce God to the limit of our bigotry. We are trying to make God assume the anatomy of our own bias. And so we have to check our own fascist impulses within our own religious communities as well.
Wow. Well.
Well, we can pass the offering plate on that one. But I think that brings me to a great point that you made in your article where you talk about faith as one of the tools that we can use to fight fascism and that we have used to fight fascism. Do you feel like for this new generation or this younger generation that they don't see faith in the same way, that they don't see their faith as a tool that can be used to fight some of the systems that we see, because they see faith as something that is passive or something that does not demonstrate strength?
Yeah, that's a great point. Let me tell you something. I don't want to sound like an old man here, but let me sound like an old man.
It's okay.
I mean, I be on the internet, and on Beyonce's internet, and I see all these preachers up here, and they saying smart, slick stuff. Ooh, you better get it. You know, the Bible says this, and you must do this, and they got tremendous psychodynamics. I mean, man, ain't no denying that. But it's a theology of luxury and leisure. It's a justification of middle class status. This is Max Weber in brown skin. The Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism run amok.
Wow.
And
Wow.
this theology of leisure and luxury is about the implicit acceptance of the capitalist arrangement that you have to get more of, as opposed to challenging it to make sure that more people who are excommunicated from the community of privilege are brought back in. Look, if you believe in capitalism as the fundamental foundation that is legitimate and not the challenge of it, you sell people. The reason you poor is not because there's an unjust system. You just ain't doing it right. You ain't playing the game right. You ain't doing the right thing to get your blessing. You ain't praying to God right. If you pray to God right, if you come right and put your sins on the altar and leave me $10, we know that God will then bless you. Come on, dog. So here we are now. Even Reverend Ike had a better sense of things than that. Reverend Ike acknowledged the historic legacy of white supremacy in our own darn, system. So I see so much of younger religion as privatized, that the social media has conformed religious sentiment, passion, and belief to the shape of a private engagement with a personal God, as opposed to a collective responsibility before a public deity.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, when you look at, I ain't saying that we ain't blowing smoke up on him because he here. You talk to Reverend Jesse Jackson. One of his favorite books of all time is The Politics of Jesus. I'm just telling you. He told me himself when he was valuably verbal. And so, who's talking about the politics of Jesus? Who's talking
Right.
about Jesus's fight? They try to use Jesus as a cloak for certain practices in the Middle East, as opposed to a legitimate authority that would condemn immoral practices.
Yeah.
We don't have much of that going on. I'm sorry, and I don't want to sound like the old dude, but dadgummit, I'm not saying no young people have picked up that that tremendous armor, if you will, and try to represent the most progressive understanding of our religious belief. That's not true. This is why you've got Alencia Johnson writing a book, Flipping the Tables, the very metaphor of Jesus overturning the table in the temples. This is why you've got Angela Rye from her religious perspective, or Joy Reid from her religious perspective, or Corey Minor Smith from her religious perspective, speaking about mental health and the capacity of Black people to challenge the inequities that prevail in our culture. This is why you've got younger people who are rising up. I've got a young student here at the Vanderbilt Divinity School, Reverend Royal Todd, who's going to be featured in diverse issues in higher education as one of the 10 best graduate students in America. So we're training young people to come up and stand up. I'm not denying the legitimacy of that, but so much of this is cluttered with the inertia, to mix metaphors, of this privatistic conception of religion that harkens back to a coloring of Harry Emerson Fosdick, right, who got caught up in some of that personal stuff. This is Norman Vincent Peale and brown skin.
Yeah.
We're trying to legitimate and justify the economic, accumulation of wealth. Now, don't get me wrong. I ain't trying to say people should be poor. We should be fighting poverty, starting with ourselves. I ain't mad at none of that. But to make that the be all and end all of a gospel where Jesus gave up most of his earthly goods for the larger society, where Martin Luther King Jr., who was known as Tweed when he was younger, because he had the dope clothes, the nice threads, as they would say back in my day, the beautiful on fleek kind of clothes, and yet he got down to 3 suits at the end of his life, gave all of his money to the civil rights movement, and had to borrow money every year from his father to pay his taxes.
Yeah.
This is what, right? None of us measure up to that.
Yeah.
Starting with Michael Eric Dyson. But we must aspire to a religious sensibility, vibration, and tonality that resonates with a conception of God as concerned about the least of these. And most of us are concerned about ourselves and how we get our brands right and how we get our own particular positions right. And I ain't saying, look, get your brand right. I'm not dogging your brand. Get your public relations right. This is a different era, and we have to adapt and adjust. We know we're living in a social media era, and we know if Martin Luther King Jr. took advantage of television, remember, that's how he clowned Bull Connor, then Martin Luther King Jr. would take advantage of Instagram, would take advantage of Twitter, would take advantage of social media to articulate his viewpoint. But at the same time, let's not make the medium God. Let's not make social media the instrument to become the very thing that we worship.
And so, brother, what you hit on is the models of ministry have gotten so skewed these last couple of decades. It's the biblical ethos basically is about the collectivity, love your neighbor, love the community, right? It's the individualism that has that's pervaded ministry now that is the problem, which is a result of the capitalist turn. And and also we talk about the young people. So many, look at Kirk Franklin and all the entertainers and all that. If they're saying that these folk are calling young people to the church, my question is, what are they calling them to, man? What kind of social consciousness, what kind of wanting to change the world, what kind of the Spirit's along me, the Lord's upon me to preach good news to the poor.
Right.
It is this whole.
Kirk Franklin is definitely developing. He's gotten a lot more political in the last few years. Just to give one example of a person who's seen white supremacy from within. And sometimes, Dr. Hendricks, you raise a brilliant point there. Sometimes it takes some of our brothers and sisters who get inside of these white evangelical circles to see how bigoted and hateful they are. And the first book I would give them is The Politics of Jesus. I had a long argument with Kirk Franklin in New Orleans, backstage of the Essence Festival. And I must say, he's a bright young man, very smart, and he began to see some of the issues about race that needed to be talked to. I'm not saying as a result of me, because he was developing this already, but he certainly has called out some of these white evangelical people. But you're right. What are we calling them to? What are we bringing them to? What do we offer? But some of it is a judgment of us. What we offering? We ain't offering much. We offering the same thing a mama did. If you in a church where they tell you women can't preach, I wouldn't join either. I'd be on the internet too,
No.
where I see many women doing fantastic things. You know why the internet supplants the church for many of us, or the internet church? Because Black women are doing their thing.
No.
Black women are speaking outside the circle of clergy, outside the officialdom of a gospel or of a clergy that can give them legitimacy. They ain't got to wait. They preaching on the internet. They're talking on the internet. They're expressing themselves on the internet. That's a judgment against the traditional church, whose institutionalization of patriarchy has not made much room for these women. So shame on us for that as well.
Let me just make this clear. I wasn't criticizing Kirk Franklin. I was talking about,
right, I was just giving an example, but yeah.
2 decades ago when all of that started, and that
That's
was
true.
very different then. And young people were coming, and it was about having fun. It was about the performance orientation. Remember the article I wrote a couple decades ago on gospel music. But LaKesha has a point that she's looking at me.
Right.
Yeah, because I think that you make a great point when you talk about social media and the rise of these media personalities. And we cannot end the show without talking about the incident that happened yesterday. And one of the things that the internet gave us was
not just the incident. Please say what you're talking about specifically.
The murder of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. Well, God, first of all, God blesses. Let him rest in peace. God bless his family. God bless his wife, his 2 children. That's evil. Ain't no 2 ways about it. It ain't complicated. If you are out here speaking, and I'm sure you, Reverend Womack, you, Dr. Hendricks, and me, I don't want it happening to him because I don't want it happening to me.
Right.
I want to be able to express myself. And if people get pissed, they get pissed and get mad. Don't buy my books. Don't take my class, but don't kill me. Mm-hmm. And the evil that was done to that man is unqualified. Right. There is no but. There is no asterisk. Yeah. There is no period. Right? And not but. And the tragedy is this: is that Mr. Kirk said some horrible and defensive things about Black people, Black women in particular, Martin Luther King Jr., George Floyd is a scumbag, Joy Reid, Black women, Michelle Obama. I mean, horrible, racist things that cannot be excused even in death, even as we acknowledge the sanctity of a moment to recognize his passing as fundamentally unjust.
Yes.
We say to those who follow him, listen to our message, because those of us on this side say that it is wrong to take up arms against a human being, to crush them in the name of an ideology that you think is righteous.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know who murdered him. If it turns out to be a leftist and a radical, I still say the same thing. Yeah. I do not believe I do not make a fetish of worship out of my particular ideology. It's all subject to revision, which means it ain't perfect. So at the same time, however, we have to say it ain't 2 sides to this. The President of the United States of America last night, in making his statement about his dear friend Charlie Kirk, said that it was the radical left. He didn't mention a single person who had been murdered who was a Democrat, who was a progressive, who was a liberal. His own bigotry, his own violent blindness, his own inability to acknowledge the human, his own exemplification of what Toni Morrison talked about, the stigmatization, the demonization, the othering of other people. This is the problem. And look, I don't stand for it on the left either. And I'm going to tell you, even in the left, when you own social media and people who are supposed to be progressive, but who want to be blacker than you, calling you names, I've been called names. I've been dogged. And I want to say, do you think I don't have the capacity to shoot back at you?
Right.
Do you actually think that I don't have the capacity as a wordsmith to get down in your mama's imagination and darken the arena of your internal psyche with a blistering repudiation of your infernal incompetence? I got them skills.
I think
But I choose not to
Yeah.
do that. I choose not to do that. And what I do though, but here we are as people on the same side, cancel culture, hating each other, don't like what you're doing. That's a form of bigotry too.
yeah,
That's a
It is.
form of fascism too. That's a form of repudiation of the ability to be free as well. I'm not saying that's a parallel to what is happening in a culture where DEI is under assault, where trans rights are under assault, where gay, lesbian, and bisexual people are under assault, where women are under assault. There is no equality there. There is no forged connection that is false or any false equivalence. But I will say that we must pay attention to our own inclinations and our own ability to worship at the altar of our own beliefs. And when we see the right wing, we want to say to Charlie Kirk, we wished when you were alive that you could have been, they say he went around the country, he would take on anybody. That's a form of white privilege too.
Right.
Because
It is.
are you telling me Obery Hendricks can't put up a table somewhere and invite people and say, look, give me your questions. I'm gonna break them down. You think we can't go out there and do that?
Right.
You think we can't go out here and engage that? Even the privilege of having the ability to manifest your ostensible mastery is a form of white privilege that you didn't interrogate. And so in our era, it is extraordinarily harmful that we've come to such a place where the president of the United States of America is leading as a cheerleader for violent, vicious, vitriolic responses to those who are his opponents, turning them into enemies. The very manifestation of what Toni Morrison was talking about. So, Charlie Kirk, what happened to you was evil. What happened to him was wrong. It should never have happened. And we
To
should pray for
anyone.
his family. And on the other hand, we should say some of the beliefs that he held were destructive. Some of the beliefs that he held were vile and reprehensible
and
and
hate
must be called so.
and
But do
evil.
you worry about what's happening, like with the bomb threats on the 3 HBCU campuses, like the backlash that's going to result in the Black community from those who hold the same beliefs that he has?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah,
What
sure,
are
sure.
what implications? I think it's a great question. What are the
Yeah.
implications of this for us? Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, there's no doubt. But see, that's a rerun for us. That ain't no first series. That ain't no new show, right? That's the Jeffersons all over again.
Right.
That's a rerun from what we done been through for centuries, right? Every time there's progress, Black progress, there's white backlash. We know that.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing now, taking AP courses and getting rid of them, having so-called anti-woke laws, a president who's attacking DEI. This is par for the course. Read Manisha's, brilliant book about the, second Reconstruction and what we had to deal with in the first Reconstruction, or Peniel Joseph with the third Reconstruction. Read, these texts. Read Stephen Hahn's Illiberal America. I mean, where he lays this out in brilliant fashion about it ain't just like, oh, we have a liberal democracy and illiberal stuff, the stuff we're talking about now, the hatred of democracy, the undermining of the authority of the state that's legitimate. It ain't no, oh, it's liberal democracy and this stuff is creeping up. He's saying it's always part and parcel. It's a very integral part of the culture itself. So,
Yes.
yes, that's the implication here. But here's the implication, too. Black people, once again, can help save this democracy. Black women have done it time and again. Martin Luther King Jr. said it is us who will inject new meaning into the veins of Western civilization. And because we've been through fascism, y'all need to listen to what we've been doing. Don't trip. Don't think it's the end of the world. Last time I checked, God did not resign. Unless there was a resignation letter today, God did not resign. If God ain't resigned, then God is still acting. And if God is still acting, that means God can do what God can do. And this is what I want to challenge the Black church. Did you believe what you were saying?
Ooh.
When Jesus will be your backup. Did you believe what you were saying when you were saying all them prayers and singing all them songs and preaching all them sermons? Nothing shall separate us from the love of God. Did you believe all that stuff you were saying? Well, if you believed it, stand on it. Believe it. Because Donald Trump is not God. And as a result of that, like all of us, he will die. Like we will die. You will die. All of us will die. But God will live. And so if we believe that, we believe in an eternal source of redemption, rescue, and reformation that can make this culture what it should be. And I end by saying this. A lot of people say, well, God put Obama in office. If you think God put Obama in office, then you got to believe God put Trump in office. It ain't no two ways about it. I never believed that God put nobody in office. God gives us the recipe, the requirements. I want somebody just. I want somebody fair. I want somebody who loves people, blah, 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 right? This is what leadership is about. We do the choosing. Don't be blaming God for Trump or Obama. Blame yourself. Did you vote? Did you stand up? Did you create the possibility for those who are just to rule over you? So Charlie Kirk, rest in peace. God bless you. I'm sorry that you were murdered. That was evil. That was wrong, unqualifiedly. And I hope others do not take up the banner of bigotry and the vile, vitriolic, vicious rhetoric that was often deployed, not only by him, but by so many on the right who refuse to acknowledge the humanity of all of our brothers and sisters.
Oh, my God. Amen. Amen. My brother. My brother. Man, you sound like you're a preacher, man. I don't know. No, this was brilliant.
Yes. We could keep you here all night talking to you, but we do have to end at some point. So we want to thank you so much for being. You're actually our first guest on the podcast. So thank you so much.
Oh my God!
Us.
Oh man!
Yes,
all right.
I know.
I got to come back for the 10th anniversary. I got to come back for the 10th anniversary.
And thank you, man. Brilliant. LaKesha, he said so many of the things that a Black American general needs to hear, brother.
Yes.
Thank you so much for laying it out in your inimitable fashion. You know, that's one of the big words I picked up from being around you.
You were funny.
No, we really.
Yeah. If I had to read Greek and Syrian and all them other languages you had to read just to get your degree, I'd be real smart, bro.
Yeah, don't forget Ebonics, brother.
Well, I mastered that, Doc.
Yeah,
Get over to the Stizo Rizite Nizite, brother. Yeah, all right. Yo.
Well, if listeners want to find out more about you, where can they find you online? How do you prefer to engage?
Michael Eric Dyson on Instagram. I don't do Twitter much because it's a cesspool of toxicity, but I go on there from time to time. I ain't got on TikTok yet. I guess I got to try. So, holla at your boy, and then we can hang out a little bit.
Yes,
Sounds good. Dr. Hendricks, do you have any parting words for our audience?
No, other than we're so glad that people tuned in because everybody got something out of this.
Yes.
I mean, everybody. I'm not, and that includes enemies as well. This was a master class in politics and religion and just rational thought and in compassion. And I must say, I learned a lot, and I stand indicted in what you said about Charlie Kirk. I was focusing maybe too much on his words when he said that he didn't have any use for empathy, right? And I'm thinking, well, and then when he said that some people need to die so that Second Amendment might live. Said, well, hey, brother, it's horrible on yourself, but I should feel more compassion for him as a human being, while remembering that he was an evil son of a gun and who did irreparable harm to our people while he walked the earth.
Well, look, Dr. King dealt with Bull Connor, and he told Black people, you must love all these people, not in a sentimental fashion, not in an emotional fashion, but in a way that protected your theological integrity, your belief and faith in God, and the understanding that as long as a human being is breathing, there is an opportunity to change. And once that human being stops breathing, there's an opportunity for us to learn. And if we keep that in mind, no matter how horrible or reprehensible, our responsibility and accountability is to God and not to anyone else.
That's a very good point. And where I stand on that, I agree wholeheartedly. But where I stand on that is that it is important for us to keep track of what people did.
There ain't no doubt about that. There ain't no doubt about that.
One thing we're not doing these days is calling evil by its name enough. Now, Charlie Kirk, no, and let me say this, brother, I do have compassion. I do have compassion because I don't want it to happen to myself. Right. But these people are the forward ranks of an evil onslaught. They're looking to destroy our rights and maybe our personages, and we need to keep that in mind. So what you're saying about compassion and love is so very important. But part of love is also pointing out evil where it stands. So that's where I'm with you, brother. I mean, I was raised in the church too. I believe.
Yeah. No. Well, I tried to make plain what I understand my own, interpretation of these things are. So I stand with you in that regard. But it's not my mother, it's not my father, but it's me, oh Lord. Amen. Standing in the need of prayer. And we have to interrogate our own practices so we don't become like the very thing we despise.
You're right.
And I think that's extremely important. And one example, just to give you one example, not on the quote evil side, we get mad when white folk uncritically follow Donald Trump. And yet when the first black president comes in for legitimate critique, we get the same kind of blindness that the other side has. Just one example of what we need to be careful about.
Got you.
All right. So we got to do better. But thank you all so much for tuning in to our show. You can find out more about the podcast at thepoliticsofjesuspodcast.com. And next week, we are excited to have Robert P. Jones as our guest. And he's going to be talking to us about the difference between white Christianity and, we're going to ask him some questions about how they become indoctrinated in the ways that they are and see their Christianity and their nationalism as the same. So I think that's going to be a dynamic conversation and hope you all will tune in next week. So thank you all again for tuning in. And also let folks
know how they can reach us, Keisha.
Oh, yes. Tell them how they can reach you, Dr. Hendricks.
Yes. Well, you can reach me on my Substack, which I have a Substack on there, which I write about Toni Morrison, and I wrote about it some months ago, Toni Morrison and Fascism. But this is one way. Another way, Dr. Dyson, that we're trying to take advantage of social media to wage the fight. And Keisha, how might they reach you?
They can find me at LaKesha Womack on all social media channels.
Excuse me.
Yes, I'm fancy, huh? All right, so everybody have a great evening, and we will see you back here next week, same time, same place.
Thank you, Dr. Dyson.
Thank you all now. Appreciate you.
All right.